Okay. Well, thank you very much for agreeing to present to the class on Is There Culture in Architecture?
Mhm.
And I'm sure when it is possible for you to show up in person, whatever questions they have, I'll probably send to you ahead of time. And so please welcome um, a very good sister, a
Mhm.
wonderful researcher. Amie Edwards is her name, and she's going to be presenting to us about the Asante architecture and cultural symbolism. Now, you remember that we have talked about the various ethnic groups on the African continent. So if you have a country like Ghana, there will be various ethnic groups within Ghana. So let me not take the wind off her
Mhm.
sail. Please, could you tell us about the Asante architecture and the cultural symbolism? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, Professor, for having me here to share my research, to share what I have gathered about Asante architecture and how it connects to the society. And so, um, I'm going to talk about Asante architecture and cultural symbolism, and specifically focusing on the Asante Palace. There's something special about this Asante Palace is that it was the original palace of the king of the Asante Nation when it first started, and it was destroyed. Also, this is important in sort of understanding cultural preservation because this structure no longer exists. So, embedded in that architecture is tremendous history, tremendous significance to the Asante people in general. So, with that, I have this sort of foundational understanding about architecture. And so architecture, you can see here, it has architecture is an artifact of time. The tectonics and the materiality of buildings tells the story of society, revealing the essence of place, the movement of people, and the trajectory of the future. So you can't really understand about the future until you understand about the past. And one specific element that is within that we'll talk about more is Adinkra symbols. Um, Adinkra symbols, one particular Adinkra symbol that I have here is Sankofa. And Sankofa means that it's not wrong to go back to get things that's from the past and bring it with you as you move toward the future. And it's the symbol of a bird, a precious bird with his feet facing forward, with his head turning backwards with the egg in its mouth. And so this is see how you are starting to understand how symbolism is connected to culture. And we'll see more as we go forward. So we understand about where this palace was. This palace is in Kumasi. Kumasi is in the central portion of Ghana. If you know about Ghana, Ghana is on the west coast of Africa, off the Gulf of Guinea. And it is a significant place because it was one of the first countries to receive its independence. And so going back to understand about Kumasi, where the palace was, this was the original traditional city of the forest region. Um,
It appears you're broken up. It's frozen. Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Knowledge.
Okay. You broke up a while for a few.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
no. So, okay, let me see. Can I reshare?
Oh, okay.
Hmm. Okay,
Let's see. Yeah, co-host. Yes, you can.
okay. Hmm.
Okay.
Okay, let me see. I
I
was
think
here.
you're on slide 3 or so.
Okay. And so I was talking about historiography and in the way in which um, understanding the architecture and understanding society and philosophy and how you understand the built environment and how you live in general. And so understanding authenticity is very important. And so this history and truth. So this quote from Paul Ricoeur, which is a philosopher, he says that we expect history to make the past of human society attain dignity and objectivity, to add a new province to the diversified empire of objectivity. Traditional society rectified the official and pragmatic arrangement of that past. That means understanding past architecture and culture based upon authenticity and what that society believed. That includes the way of building, the built environment in architecture. So one thing to understand, like I would mention before, you can see around the central region where Kumasi is located, that is rich in vegetation, a very dense forest. And so that dense forest, that area, it is respected and venerated. And the landscape is considered sacred. And here I have some representations of sort of markers or natural markers in the country or around Kumasi. And there's a cola tree that was planted by the first priest of the Asante Kingdom, Akomfanoche, and it's called a cola tree, a cola jua, and it's over 300 years old, and it's still there. And also a lake, Lake Bosam Tree, which is a sacred lake. And in that lake, there is a tree that's over 383 years old. And there is usually ceremonies that takes away around this lake. This is a sort of spiritual spaces. So the nature is not separate from architecture. It's integrated as one and it all works together. And then here we also have at Manchia Palace, they have a jadua, which is like a tree of recession. It's a respected tree. A lot of meetings take place there. There's a sort of connection and communal um, interaction that is actually taking place there. So nature, that is a cultural element that's connected to architecture, the landscape. So I'm showing you here that's at that's showing that tree that's inside of the Lake Balsam tree. Very beautiful place. So here's sort of a diagram, an analysis that I'm showing place, the city, and how these trees, these special trees, these special landscape elements is surrounded around the city of Kumasi. And that's where the palace is actually located. And as I mentioned before, that The landscape is venerated. It is a respected um, element of life. It is a part of life, just like architecture is a part of life. Everything is integrated together. There's actually poems and drum language that is connected to um, nature and various elements, water, trees, animals, that it's all respected in the Asante culture. So the Kumasi city, there is a story that is connected to that built environment we mentioned before, that cocoa tree.
Okay, I think you're frozen again, and we'll wait until you come back again. Um, so we can continue from where you stopped about the landscape, the connection between the palace and the city. I think you were talking about some the vegetation around there as well. So we'll wait until you come back. Um, okay, I guess you're back now. Yes, good. You're back. Yeah, it cut off again, and
So
we'll
what
just
can we, I don't know what we can, I don't know what's happening to today with this.
let's just keep on um let's just keep on going.
Okay.
We at least we have something. So let's just move.
Okay,
Yes,
okay, let me see.
just share your screen again.
Mhm. Okay. I think it kicked me. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So I was talking about the
Yeah.
city. And so we was talking about how the nature is connected with the built environment. And so a tree was the place in which the city was established. And it was established with a spiritual ceremony and a spiritual act in which the tree that survived out of being planted in the first three cities that became Kumasi, and that means under the kum tree. So the imperial city was named after a tree. And so you're starting to see this connection with environment, architecture, and nature. So another part of the material culture. And so the material culture is different elements, which includes architecture, which includes arts and crafts, and also agriculture that embodies the particular society that has meaning. And so one particular symbol, significant symbol to Asante is the golden stool. The golden stool is a symbol that represents the Asante people. It is the soul of the nation. It is only kept by the Asante Hene, and it's only brought out on special ceremonies within the palace. And so when the stool was developed, just like Asante Hene, the Asante Hene came into existence with the stool. In the 17th century, when the establishment of the Union of the Asante, Akomfo brought all the chiefs together during an annual ceremony and with their stools, and they buried the stools. And the priest said that whoever is the king of the Asante nation, the golden stool will come from the cloud and land in that king's lap. And so the golden stool came down from the cloud, the sky, after the Akomfo performed this act, and it landed in the lap of the first king, Ose Tutu. And that act enshrined the Asante nation to the golden stool. So that, as long as the golden stool is there with the king at the palace, then the Asante will always have unity. So this is so you see this material culture and architecture and ritual connecting together. Here we have an analysis of how the stool is connected with ritual. The stool, when it comes out, sits in its own seat. There's drums and drum language that is taking place as a message that the stool is there with the Asante Hene. Here we have different stools with different symbols. It's a representation of power and authority. So here's an understanding of the Asante Hene city. And within the Asante Hene city, there is various architecture that surrounds the palace. And we can see here, this is the palace here. And then there's various other palaces, small palaces of noblemen that is support to the king that surround this palace. And something particular that is about the Asante, as we mentioned before, about the veneration and the respect of the respect of nature. You can notice here that the Asante Hene's palace was not demarcated by walls. As you can see, is demarcated, is protected by nature. And that is something very special and very significant to the Asante, and which the landscape is the protection. It's not built up with materials or in a man-made sort of fashion. The trees become the sort of security, as well as a river back here, which is the Subin River, which means that the Subin is the river that is protector of the city, the god that protects of the city. And so this is an element where nature is connected to architecture. And I want to really point out here is that you can how you can see how these different elements of and here in the green is where the vegetation is surrounding um, the palace. So in the analysis of the city, that the very special way in which the palace is different from other palaces that I have studied, um, I begin to look at how the the imperial residence is protected. And here you can see architecture. You see architecture as a defense. In the first, where you can see all the way around the palace, there is different strategically placed architecture. And you can see that we'll talk later about the different types of architecture, different typologies, and the scale of the different types of Asante architecture. But here you can see in a sort of aerial view how the architecture is assuming a sort of barrier around the imperial palace. Here you see landscape as a defense, where you see the trees and the vegetation, as well as the river as a sort of defense around the palace. And here you can also um, see where elements of landscape and architecture as spiritual elements. Here, this particular element here is a temple. So the Asante has his own temple. And so you have the temple as architecture. You have the landscape, which is a spirit grove, which is a sacred grove. That is, you're not only certain priests are prohibited to go into that spirit grove. And then you have the Subin River, which is the God that protects the city. So you have a spiritual element and architecture that is protection of the Asante city. So another sort of part of the material culture, as we mentioned in the beginning, was Adinkra symbols. So the Adinkra symbol is a sort of visual language system. It is the sort of ink that is used to make these symbols is from a tree, the bark of a tree, and it's pounded, it's cooked, and then it is cooled, and then it is stamped on cloth. And each symbol, the way it is assembled on the cloth, is a message. These symbols, as we mentioned before, has proverbial meaning. So when somebody see the symbol, wherever it is, may it a cloth, where it's a building, or where it's a type of pottery, it's giving a message. Um, Everyone within the society understand that language, that symbolic language. So as we were talking about before, I was talking about the different scales, different types of building. The palace is the ultimate standard of the buildings and the Asante architecture. And so you have, and it branches off into a smaller, which is a typical house. And the typical house is a compound. And it's a spatially organized with a series of rooms called pato around a central space, jayase, open space. And it's open to the air. So when you go out of the plateau, you're immediately outside into an open space. That connection between nature and your home. And so the typical citizen's home was small in scale and it had minimal decorative elements on it. and had a thatch roof, an open space, and the plateau. And so a symbol of a Adinkra symbol, and so you're starting to see this connection that's connected with home, is Fihankra. And Fihankra is a Adinkra symbol of the compound house. And it means security and safety. So you see this sort of connection that the actual home is connected with another part of the material culture that is interlinked with each other. So this is the base part of the Asante architecture, Efie, which is house. Next, we have Ahimfie, which means royal house or palace. And as I mentioned before, it's larger in scale. It's much larger in scale than a typical citizen's house, Asante citizen's house. But it has multiple units of patio around a central open space. And it is highly decorated. And usually the palaces and the shrines are highly decorated and inscribed with symbols. And so you can see here we have a stool house. And as I kind of scaled up on the map, what the Asante Palace was like. So you see there's multiple courtyards or open spaces here, and then plateaus all around, all around it. And so this is a stool house. You remember we talked about the stool being a symbol of authority. And so we have here an actual stool house where the stool is stored of the chief. Each chief has a stool. And so that place is the stools is also stored there. And in this particular stool house, you also have a shrine. So we're going to talk a little bit about symbolism and understanding of architecture. So why is the palace associated directly across, has adjacency to a shrine? And the reason is that this is sort of legitimizing the sort of um, monarchical power, political power, and ancestral and spiritual power that the king has. So these way of understanding and visually representing the king's power and authority. And it's typically that way. That is a way, a system of building in the Asante. There's usually, for the palaces, there's usually either a shrine or a mausoleum beside the palace. So this is sort of a cultural language and symbolism, a way of how buildings are structured or positioned in the landscape. So we have the shrine. We're going to talk about the shrine, Abosomdan, and it is called a god building. And so, like we were saying, these buildings are typically highly decorated. They have lots of Adinkra symbols, lots of messages. And when the society approached the building, they have an understanding of what this place is. So you have a crocodile, which is a sacred um, creature it is revered in the Asante culture because of its ability to survive in the water and out of the water. You have the Nyamedua, which is like a god tree. When someone approaches the building, they also know that this is a place of worship. So you see, you have a tree that is a representation of a symbol on architecture. Also, down here on the bottom, you can see where we have the Athena swords, which is ceremonial swords. These swords are often within ceremonies, sacred ceremonies, and rituals within the Asante culture. And also, you have a different type of Sankofa a symbol. This is just a different way of writing Sankofa. It's always remembering the past. It's about remembering the past. That means ancestral past, as well as the sort of cultural past as well. So this is the sort of spatial configuration. You can see the typical plateaus surrounding these with different rooms and different functions of the temple. So the Abosomdan, the god buildings, are the last sort of authentic architecture, works of architecture from the 17th century that is in the Asante culture. There is now 10 shrines, and they are under the protection of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites and the Ghana Museum and Monuments Board. And so these are the surviving works of architecture after um, the buildings and various architectural works, traditional architectural works were destroyed or just passed, just disintegrated over time. And so these are ones that we still have, and these spiritual spaces. So these spiritual spaces sort of survive time. Um, and so these places serve as intermediaries between the the God Nyame, and Prince to society. So here's a map that's showing all these sort of temples that's surrounding Kumasi and located near Lake Bosamche. So here I did an analysis of all the different sort of columns. In architecture, we understand a building based upon its column. It's called a column order or architectural canon. And the major part of it is the column. The column tells you about the building, it tells you about the story of the building, and it's the actual structure that holds up the building. So that's why it's so important. And most of the time, they're highly decorated. And just like other columns in other cultures, Asante have Adinkra um, symbol columns. So each column has an Adinkra symbol on it. And you can see here different sort of Adinkra outlined um, in the column within the shrine. And so at the moment, the Asantehene wants this to more researched, and so this architectural heritage can be preserved and exemplified even more in the modern built environment. Another sort of symbol, a part of material culture, is kente cloth. You probably have heard of kente cloth is sort of like a popular, different cultures have cloths, but the Asante have a kente cloth, and it's the cloth that speaks. So each geometric shape within different cells has a message. It has a hidden message. Most the Asantes know what this particular cloth and the sort of arrangement of these geometric shapes, and they're mostly worn at ceremonies. Um, and so we have two here, Sika Futuro, which means gold dust, and which is a pretty common one. And it symbolized royalty, elegance, creative ingenuity, intelligence, wealth, perfection, and superior craftsmanship. And this is was traditionally, it's worn more now by society in general, but it was traditionally worn by the Asante king. Even now, he may have a special one specifically for him that's designed, but he wears them in ceremonies throughout within the palace. And then you have another one here, Bashia Kochere, which means carry poverty and seek help. That, in other words, if you are have poverty or if you need something, this is a way to get help. You're seeking help. It symbolizes hope, faith, sharing, and benevolence. So here, these cloth is made in 4-inch strips, and then it is sewn together, and it's done in a traditional weaving way on a loom. This is still done today. This is an honored sort of traditional craft, and it is a part of many ceremonies. So as I mentioned before, as I always mention, ritual and ceremonies, we all have ritual and ceremonies. We have a ritual and the ceremonies when we actually, a ritual way of which we go into any architecture. When we go to classes, it's a sort of ritual. So that's how you understand ritual. It is a way of which you're systematically doing something. So within Asante, these sacred ceremonies, they're sacred ritual ceremonies that the Asante have. One is the Odria Festival, which means purification. It was at this festival in which the golden stool was called from the sky into the lap of the Asante Hine Ose Tutu. And it was inside of the palace. So all the ceremonies um, of the Asante is done with inside, most of them inside of the palace. Um, the Asante conduct, various festival rituals for political and economic purposes, um, and also political and spiritual and ancestral purposes. They have the Adria Festival, Ade Festivals, Akwase Day Festival, which is on Wednesdays, the Akua Day festivals, which is on Akwase Day is on Sunday. Akua Day is on Wednesday. And then they have a special Fofies festival that's conducted by the Asante Hini within the sort of palace. So yam is also a food, and you might have heard of fufu. This is made of yam, and that is an agricultural wealth. So there was a celebration of the yam festival. This particular drawing was done in the 19th century by a Thomas Bodick when he went to one of these sort of ceremonies, a yam festival. You can see here. Um, so here is still carried out today. This is at a Akwasade festival and in Kumasi, in at the palace, which is now called Manchia Palace. because the other palace was destroyed. Now they're at Manshia Palace. And so at this ceremony, you can see the same umbrellas that was in the 18th century. You can see Adinkra here that the king has on his royal cloth. And then you can also see the sort of various noblemen, various royals wearing kente. And here you also have the priest. The priest is the first to come into, he has sort of vegetation on his head, carrying sacred vegetation into the palace before the ceremonies, before the king comes and it begins, the ceremonies begin. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of different things. There's drums, there's different cultural elements as this ceremony sort of proceeds, and the Asante comes out next, and then he takes his place in his seat of authority, as you can see here, under his umbrella. And the umbrella symbolizes that he is the great tree of the nation. He is the strength of the nation. And he is the spiritual and political authority of the Asante Nation. So here, this is a time tradition that's taken place in the palace. You can see here, Asante Hine the second. He has the same kente cultural element of the kente rule. And you can see the golden stool sitting in its own chair. And position facing the deity in the ceremony. And here you can see the courtyard of the palace. And so you can see the sort of connection over time, how the cultural elements are a part of the architecture, how it is connected, interconnected. So here is analysis that I developed in which we get the holistic understanding about Asante architecture. The building speaks and it actually is interconnected. It's not separate from nature. It's not separate from the identity of the Asante people. It's one, just like the fabric. It's interconnected based upon language, based upon religious belief and social norms. It is connected all together. And so I did a analysis of the palace facade here, looking at the thatch roof system and the wattle and daub. And you see the wattle and daub is a way the wall is constructed, in which you have a sort of weaving of different wood elements, and then it's pressed with earth to make it strong. And so that element, a way of weaving, the wall structure is connected with a sort of cultural element that is actually worn. And also we have the Adinkra symbols, ram and horn, which means humility and strength, that's displayed in the plinth of the building. And we also have a passive cooling system that has tabon, which is a Adinkra symbol that means courage and hard work. And so, in this sort of understanding of Asante architecture, we're gathering that there is a connection, that everything is interconnected. And that is how the building speaks. The building speaks about not only it's just being a static sort of structure, but it is integrated with the nature, it is integrated with spiritual um, beliefs, and is integrated with language and philosophy of the society. Thank you, Medasi.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Like I said to you, once we play it back and the students have any questions, we'll send the questions to you. And when you have a time, it will be a great honor to respond to some of their questions. Most of the things you have said, we've touched on, but not specific to Ghana. The fact of the interconnection
Mm,
amongst humans and nature and history and ancestors and
yes,
all of that, the ancestral veneration, we try
yes.
to do evaluation. So I want to say a very big thank you to you. And like you say in, is this Chui or
Chi, yes,
Chui?
Medasi.
Yeah, Medasi. Medasi.
Medasi
Yes.
for you.
So that's another one we have learned, Medasi.
Yes.
Okay then. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay.